Today we're in St George, which sits on the eastern boundary of the city of Bristol in England, where on February the 19th, 2015, the brutal murder of 16-year-old Becky Watts by her stepbrother Nathan Matthews horrified the nation. Becky was born on June the 3rd, 1998. She had fought to overcome a lot of issues in her short life, and at the time of her death was beginning to blossom. Her earlier life had been tough. Her parents split up when she was 3, and she went to live with her father and stepmother, along with Nathan, her stepbrother. She was painfully shy, often refusing to go to school. Her stepmother took on the role of an unpaid classroom helper so that Becky felt safe and reassured enough to stay in school. When she went to secondary school, she was bullied, developing anorexia, and experienced what her family described as dark times. The family supported Becky, and with a lot of love and hospital support, Becky began the road back to health and wellness. Her confidence, once so low, began to grow, and as she grew into a pretty teenager, she found an interest in clothes and fashion, carving out for herself a unique style that was all her own. Her family described how she always looked immaculate. She loved shoes, trainers and boots, and was learning how to do makeup. Like most teenagers, she loved music. She was also really fond of animals, dogs especially. She looked forward to going to the cinema. She was described by her grandmother as loyal, funny, and sensible. Becky was reported missing at around 4 p.m. on the afternoon of February the 20th, 2015. She hadn't been seen since 11:15 in the morning the previous day. Her stepmother had been the last to see her alive. She had left the house for a hospital appointment, and Becky had been at home at the time. When police were called to investigate, they noted that Becky's phone, laptop and tablet were missing, but she hadn't taken any money or even a change of clothes, and she hadn't told anyone where she was going, which was unusual. On February the 22nd, Avon and Somerset police made their first appeal to the public, asking for any information to help find her. The next day, her father and grandmother held a press conference appealing for her safe return. More than 2 million people worldwide were reached using an online social media campaign, the hashtag #FindBecky, used to widen the search for the teenager. Becky's stepbrother Nathan Matthews and his girlfriend Shauna Hoare provided the police with information that initially led them to believe that Becky had left the family home. They claimed not to have physically seen her, but to have heard the door slam, indicating that she'd gone out. On the basis of this information, police made extensive searches of nearby woods and parks. The police search extended to properties in Barton Hill, Southmead and St George's Park. House-to-house inquiries were made across the area. Members of the public organised widespread searches. Becky's parents and friends were frantic. The local community wanted to do all it could to help. On February the 28th, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare were arrested in connection with Becky's disappearance. On March the 2nd, they were rearrested on suspicion of murder. And on the following day, Becky's body was found in a garden shed in a property in Barton Court. The 16-year-old had been dismembered. Nathan Watts was charged with murder on March the 4th. Shauna Hoare was initially charged with perverting the course of justice, but this charge was changed to murder on the 22nd of June. Matthews and Hoare were also charged with conspiracy to kidnap, preventing the lawful burial of a body, and possession of an illegal weapon. Unrelated charges were also levelled at the pair, of making indecent images of children. Matthews was also charged with SA and voyeurism. In police interviews recorded before he was charged, Matthews can be seen rocking and crying and putting his head in his hands as he explains how he never intended to harm Becky. He talks about wanting to scare her, to pretend to kidnap her as a way to make her more appreciative of people. He describes her as leaving things on the floor where his disabled mother might trip, as well as accusing her of making negative comments about her. His plan, he said, was to make it look like a real kidnap. He would wear a mask, force her into a suitcase with tape over her mouth, and take her into the woods. He would tell her she needed to be more appreciative or worse things would happen. This was the 28-year-old's version of events. He continued to protect Shauna Hoare as he wove his web of lies to hide the truth of what they both did. The murder trial began on October the 6th, 2015 at Bristol Crown Court and lasted for 6 weeks. The prosecution's case was that Becky was suffocated in her bedroom on the 19th of February during a sexually motivated kidnap plot carried out by both Matthews and Hoare. Becky was already dead when she was reported missing, and her body had been put in the boot of Matthews' car, where it remained for several hours before he transported it back to where he lived in Barton Court. It was over the next few days that they began the process of disposing of Becky's remains, using a knife and a circular saw and placing her in separate bin bags and boxes, and finally hiding her in a shed belonging to a neighbour. CCTV evidence had picked them up buying necessary items for their brutal plan and its gruesome aftermath. This evidence did much to seal their fate. DNA linked them both to items found next to Becky's remains. Matthews stuck to his story of a mock kidnapping gone wrong and pleaded the lesser charge of manslaughter. Hoare, he claimed, was not involved. On November the 11th, after only 3.5 hours of deliberations, the jury found Matthews guilty of murder and Hoare of manslaughter. They were both convicted of conspiracy to kidnap, perverting the course of justice, preventing the lawful burial of a body, and possession of 2 stun guns. The neighbours, who'd owned the shed, denied that they knew the contents of the packages that were stored there by Matthews. They received a sentence of 2 years and 16 months respectively for perverting the course of justice. The sentencing took place 2 days later on the 13th of November. Matthews received life imprisonment with a minimum term of 33 years. Hoare received 17 years. Matthews was found to have a fixation with petite teenage girls, and that he had persuaded Hoare to participate in this fixation with him. The attack and subsequent murder of Becky Watts was considered to have been motivated by this desire. In 2017, Matthews was attacked in prison by another inmate who poured a jug of boiling hot butter into his face. This occurred on Becky's father's birthday and was considered a welcome gift. Throughout the trial, Becky's family conducted themselves with dignity, bearing the awful revelations about what their own son and stepson had done to Becky with a resilience and strength that was acknowledged by the judge. It's impossible to imagine their anguish or how they have coped with what happened. A subsequent report into the murder criticised agencies for missing signs and for a lack of inquiry into the complicated family. It was agreed that what happened could not have been foreseen. It would seem that Matthews had been bullying and intimidating Becky for some time, and no one knew. There were multiple agencies involved with the family over the years, and a lack of interconnectedness and joined-up working meant information was lost and not joined up coherently. It transpired that Becky's troubled past included her voicing fears of kidnap to professionals, as well as fears of exploitation by others not connected to the family. Planned sessions to address these concerns never took place, as Becky didn't turn up for them. Parenting sessions to support Becky's family also never happened. Becky had flagged that there were issues with her relationship with Matthews and Hoare, but this was also not followed up. The lack of analysis and following up meant that Becky was considered troublesome rather than troubled by circumstances. The recommendations of the report include making sure that services are focused on the needs and the understanding of adolescents, that there be better communication between agencies, and making sure that fathers and the wider family are involved in the process. So this is a very small park, a small patch of green space called Plumbers Hill. It's really close to where Becky lived. She lived literally just a few minutes away from here. Right in the centre of this park is a bench carved straight from a tree trunk, especially for Becky. It's really lovely. It's not the greatest time of year, you know, to do it justice. It's quite wet, a bit muddy, but it's really lovely. It's got her name there. It has her name surrounded by a heart and angel wings at the side, and then Bristol's angel written on the bottom. It's a bitterly cold and windy day today. This place is empty. People are in the warm indoors. So I imagine in the summer this is quite a nice place to sit. I just wonder, you know, if Becky played here when she was a child. Quite likely she did. She made a mark on this community. People remember her. This isn't the only memorial to her. There's a mural in a park. I'm going to see if we can find that. It just shows what a special person she was and how well she was thought of, and whether it's any comfort, any small comfort to her family to know the strength of feeling around here. Becky's bench. This is St George's Park. It's only minutes away from where Becky lived. It's been the place of a number of memorials to Becky. Only a week after her death, hundreds gathered here to release balloons in her memory. Also, in the centre of the park, next to the children's playground, is a plaque dedicated to Becky. In memory of Becky Watts, 1998 to 2015. Your light will always shine brightly. Let it provide safety and comfort to others. Also in this park, a special mural was painted for Becky. But sadly, it was set on fire and repeatedly vandalised. This is the place where it was. No. So I'm just walking now to the final resting place of Becky Watts. And this is a really large old cemetery. There's part of it that's really old, and this is the newer part. And we know that on the day of Becky's funeral, this whole area came out in force to pay their respects and to say goodbye. You know, that the family organised for everyone to wear pink t-shirts. You know, there was a real outpouring of grief for what was absolutely horrific, you know. This words can't, there aren't any words really. Here it is. What a lovely grave. It's really, really lovely. Bristol's angel. Becky. Rebecca Marie Watts. Beautiful, affectionate, talented, loyal daughter and friend. Taken from us on the 19th of February 2015, age 16. Bex was loved by everyone, will be missed by all who knew her. Rest in peace, my child, beloved daughter, sister, granddaughter and niece. 3rd of June 1998 to the 19th of February 2015. There's a picture of her on there as well. Bless her. And the whole of this story here, reading about what happened. She had so many struggles, so many things that, you know, she'd fought through. She was bullied at school, she was painfully shy, and she was just starting to come out into her own, starting to gain confidence. She suffered with anorexia. And, you know, you can see in the picture the little style that she had going on, and they were saying she was just starting to find her own style, find her feet, find herself. Whole life ahead of her, just 16. And to be taken in the way that she was, you know, by somebody who was part of the family. It's just awful, so awful. But anyway, I've come here today just to remember and to pay respects to Becky Watts. Rest in peace.